Alrighty. If everyone could please clear the air for the transmission that is to come. Howdy, y'all, and welcome to now the 5th installment of the Bridge News Network. Now, I know, it's been a while. For those of you that have been tuning into the network for some time, or even those of you who have missed our last one, let's just say we've experienced something that we will never forget, and it has forever changed our outlook on South Zagoria in its current state. Rumors and old folk tales are one thing, but to see firsthand and to be forced into a state of terror when the devil unmasked himself right before your eyes. Shit. I'm sorry, folks. It just did a number on us, but I'll quit dilly-dallying and get going before I get too off track. But we understand that our last broadcast ended rather abruptly and left many people, including ourselves, believing that a rebel had been murdered live on air. We would normally leave personal stories and views off the air, but shit, we feel like this is an exception to that. And so, to recount the events that have happened over our last broadcast, it is my pleasure to welcome Rebel Johnson.
Well, I'll be fucking damned. It's funny, y'all. I ain't never been much of a good Christian in my life. But for some reason, God was with us that night and decided to spare us. After our line of questioning for Darkest Midnight was done, they quickly flipped the switch on us and had us in cuffs quicker than you could blink. It was obvious that this is what they had planned from the beginning, and the only reason they agreed to do an interview in the first place. They wanted us to be taken, to be used as fucking puppets in part of some barbarous public show. They held Milton all alone inside the compound while those slaves they called war boys escorted Lane and I out back. We feared for the worst, that Milton was going to be killed. Lane and I both pleaded for his innocence, as Milton wouldn't even hurt a fucking fly and wasn't part of nothing. I mean, for fuck's sake, he's our technician. All that man does is make sure that all the equipment is working properly and work on the radio signals. He ain't got no part in the politics. Well, we continued to plead for what felt like an eternity, but in reality, it was only a minute or two before Dan made their next move. They escorted Lane back inside the compound alongside Milton, but they had other plans for me. A fellow by the name of Dexter Doink, alongside CJ and a war boy, slung me into an orange brick building. I continued to plead and made a strong case, and even for a little moment, I thought I had swayed Dexter Doink into changing his mind. But I was wrong. He pondered over to the fucking war boy, of all people, and asked it if I was innocent. Boy, if I told you the amount of rage that consumed me. My life was now in the hands of something that wasn't even fucking human. Well, folks, like I said in the beginning, this was a fucking game to them. And the thought of potentially seeing blood being splattered only excited the war boy even more. So yeah, it put its fucking thumbs down, signaling its approval for my death. Dexter and CJ laughed, and she looked me dead in the eyes and told me something I won't repeat on air. But what I can say is it immediately prompted me to respond the only way I knew how. Fuck you. I shouted at her as she left the brick building to check up on things and how they were doing with Lane and Milton. Well, I guess she must be human after all, because this immediately caused her to stop in her tracks. She turned around and whacked me right across the jaw with her barbed bat. I had so much adrenaline and fear running through my veins that I didn't even fucking feel it though. All I could think about was how I just wanted it to be over. And if my death meant Lane and Milton leaving alive, then I accepted it. Dexter went on to drag me back to my feet, with the blood still showering from my open lacerations left by CJ's bat, and took me outside. He took a deep breath, and then asked, and they even told me, pick out any shitter in Gorka, and that is where they will bury my remains. Can you believe that, folks? They didn't even have the fucking decency to give me a proper burial. They were just going to throw me in some old shitter, just like they did Jezreel in that child. At this moment, there was no point in pleading with them. It was clear that they had their mind set from the start, and us arguing only elongated the suffering. This was it. Dexter Doink told me to turn around, and the war boy had a magnum loaded and pointed it right at my skull. It's funny. There's an old saying that says right before a man takes his last breath, the entire timeline of his life replays right in front of it, right in an instant. I ain't never believed it, but I can say it's true. I closed my eyes, muted out the world, and took one last breath. And then two. And then three. I opened my eyes to the side of the war boy inhaling the smoke from the hot magnum as if they were getting high from it. I was confused at first and still in a haze, but then it all made sense. As soon as I had closed my eyes and prepared for death, the war boy had adjusted his aim slightly to the right, purposely missing my head. They didn't want to kill us, at least not yet. No, they wanted to scare us and create the illusion that I had just gotten shot. I could hear Lane and Milton screaming on the inside, and even overheard Lane telling CJ the exact same words I barked at her only a few minutes prior. "Fuck you," he said to her, except he followed it up with a load of snot right to her face. Damn right. Lane took the same treatment I did, and the pain was relieved as I was returned back to the compound inside, alongside him and Milton. Poopy pulled me aside and told me that they simply wanted to make an example of us, and that we should be thanking them for allowing us to live. Can you fucking believe the nerve? Anyway, right before they let us go, they mentioned they had one more thing to show us, and asked us to follow them, except it was no question. It was a demand. Folks, what we saw in Gorka that day will forever haunt me till the day I die. Now, we've overheard some rumors that some folks believe that Esther still might be out there, and that this whole thing is a giant hoax. God, that fucking aggravates me hearing that, because if y'all saw what we saw, then you'd be all eating your own words, or you probably wouldn't even have the stomach to eat it. Right there inside the fucking shitter was Jezreel and Esther's remains. Nothing but bone with some rotten flesh clinging onto it, and it even still has some fresh bite marks in it, like they would chew on it like a snack. Makes my fucking stomach churn just thinking about it. But the reason we were going in so in depth about it all, was to squander all the rumors. This, folks, is the reason why we've been MIA with the broadcast recently. The experience traumatized us, and we just hope that y'all can find the human in you and understand this. Because some folks seem to have forgotten. We are all fucking human fighting this damn plague, just trying to survive and rebuild. There. Now y'all have the truth as to what happened last broadcast. We reevaluated some things as individuals, but as a group, and it took some time, but we decided that ultimately the people need to know what's going on and history needs to be recorded. So now we're back, and hopefully we can continue on with our broadcast just as we had right before that interview. So ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to welcome back Lane with our first news story in this broadcast. This is a confrontation of a previous story we have covered, but in recent days, new events have come into fruition. Lane, take it away, partner.
Well, thanks, Rebel. I was there, and quite terrifying stuff. Like I said, folks, we needed some time, but alas, we are back. Now, this story we are about to fill y'all in on is actually a continuation of a conflict that began even before the most recent storm. Specifically, folks, we are talking about the conflict between ORCC and the Forsaken Loyalist. Now, for those who aren't all too familiar with what's been going on, we'll give you a quick recap on the story. Mind you, we've discussed the matter with heavily with both sides, and not to our surprise, there seems to be a disagreement on between what is the truth and what isn't. The story actually starts off with a man named Sam Finch, who served as a chairman for the ORCC. Apparently, this Sam Finch feller had quite the factory, or quite the history, especially with the Forsaken Loyalist, and that history even dates back to even before the existence of the ORCC. Now, the exact history between them can get a bit fuzzy, and much of the exact information regarding Sam Finch was chosen to be left off the record, which we respect. But from what Eggfoot was able to tell us, apparently there is an arrangement set up for storage, which I guess never really went through. But in the midst of things, shortly before the most recent storm, the Forsaken Loyalists decided to make an additional deal and made a rather large investment into ORCC in order to help get them off their feet. Getting into the exact terms of this investment has proven quite difficult, however, as ORCC has admitted that their record books have been spotty and, well, as many of you know, Forsaken Loyalists tend to keep their business to themselves. But from the small bit we have been able to gather, we can say that this investment ranges in the few thousands of nails, along with at least a dozen rifles, assault rifles. This is where things start to get interesting now. According to Eggfoot, small bits of the debt was, in fact, paid off. However, while they were working to pay some more, that's when the storm hit and everything got all messed up. In ORCC's view, given that most everyone had lost everything during the storm, the debt was erased. Everyone was now on an even playing ground. This viewpoint, however, was not shared by the Forsaken Loyalist, and in their eyes, the debt is the debt. It must be paid regardless. Their frustrations were growing, and in an attempt to discuss things and reach a settlement, a meeting was set outside the ORCC compound. I won't get into all the details, folks, but the meeting resulted in the shooting of a club member named Cookie. She was believed to be dead, as she was left to rot in a nearby stream, but to everyone's amazement, she lived and was able to crawl back to her feet and find her way home to recover. Not surprisingly, though, this angered the Forsaken Loyalist, having Cookie been shot. Even more, and the aggression picked up tenfold. According to Eggfoot, he said he's a businessman himself, and while he disagrees with any debt, he wanted to try to work out something with Forsaken Loyalist, leaving them happy, and all hostilities would stop. His approach has been shut down, however, as he said that since the meeting with Cookie, several of the ORCC members have been shot and killed. He claims the Forsaken Loyalists have tacked on so much interest that he believes it will be impossible to pay it off. On the contrary, however, when we asked the Forsaken Loyalists directly about the claims of adding interest, they denied it and said that all they wanted is one or two things. Either for ORCC to kick out Samuel Finch or his head to be on a pike, because he's the cause of all this conflict, or for ORCC to pay off the original debt. And they say there is no interest. The story continues on with a lot of back and forth, with some folks being shot and killed on both sides. We can go on and on about the events that have taken place, but ORCC have reached to a point where they refuse to bend over and pay any debts given to them, given that they have been trying to only be met with more violence. And, on the contrary, the Forsaken Loyalists claim that their patience has run out, and there will simply be no more negotiations. This leads us into the most recent series of events which highlights this story. So, on February 19th of this year, just 2 weeks ago, the Forsaken Loyalists pursued a plan to try to recoup some of their debt. To recount the events that ensued, we interviewed with Ronis of the ORCC. He says he was hanging around the compound when all of a sudden he heard a voice yelling, "Let me in, let me in." Ronis looked out and recognized the man's voice, as well as his ranger armband, to be that of Jack Chin, one of the leaders of the Rangers. Seeing how things between Rangers and the ORCC had been cordial up until that moment, Ronis allowed him entry into the main courtyard area. Immediately after entering the compound, however, Ronis tells us that guns were pulled. He was put into restraints. And probably the most interesting part is that some of those purple armbands switched over to Forsaken Loyalist armbands. It was a setup, and Forsaken Loyalists had teamed up with the Rangers for the event. He says that the Forsaken Loyalists started demanding code lock combinations so that they may retrieve their debt. Ronas told them that there was no debt to be found here. He said that he didn't like the answer, and so they handed him a piece of paper and asked Ronas had a family. They even went on to ask Ronas to write to his family, and as well as the ORCC, to tell them that it was their fault. Ronas wouldn't let in to their threats, and well, he paid the price. Ronas told us that this entire conflict confuses him. In his eyes, it's been made larger than a simple repaying of a debt. He tells us that all the shooting that's been in the name of revenge, but Ronas said there is no revenge. The entire thing is about their business with Sam Finch, but Ronas himself has never even met the man. So why must he and ORCC suffer? The man is overseas, and not even ORCC has seen him in months. So, before concluding the interview, Ronas had a message for the Second Loyalist. And mind you, this is their words, not mine. Fuck the Forsaken Loyalist. So, yeah. Holy hell, folks. Lots of information and lots of accusations, to say the least. So, naturally, in any effort to stay as unbiased as possible, we met with the Forsaken Loyalists to get their account on what happened on February 19th. Rebel started off the interview by asking them hard-hitting question. Since when are y'all working with the Rangers? They refused this question and told us that their personal business is their own. Personal business. It is not to be discussed. In other words, no comment. So, we pushed again and asked if the events that took place with the Rangers at the ORCC compound were true. Once again, they chose to stay off the record and give no comment on the matter. However, after question, we were told to keep things off record, and as much as they may frustrated us, it is the one thing we hold true in our profession. I will say, though, that there was one thing that they chose to put on record, and that is that not only has no interest been tacked on, but the Forsaken Loyalists seem to understand that Sam Finch may not be of reach, and they are willing to accept just the original debt to be paid for all of this to end. Finally, when asked if they had a message for ORCC, they said the Forsaken Loyalists will continue to attack, and they lost all patience. They will pay one way or another. Jesus Christ. Well, we can say that a part of that is true, and ORCC is already paid in terms of blood loss. A few weeks after this interview, Rebel found himself at the aid station when a couple of Forsaken Loyalists were allowed entry. A few minutes later, Rebel, along everyone else inside the aid station, overheard a vehicle pulling up. It was followed by a familiar voice. That voice turned out to be Ronas of the ORCC, who was accompanied by Eggfoot, along with another recruit. Rebel was first-hand witness, and so no interviews are necessary. What happened next is what can be seen as an example of what happens when debts are not paid. Unaware of the situation between Forsaken Loyalists and ORCC, Danny of the Black Cross opened the gates to allow ORCC to enter. However, unfortunately, 3 Forsaken Loyalists were waiting, and the moment the gate swung open, they injured both Eggfoot and the recruit. Ronas was able to return fire, also injuring an FL club member of two, just before escaping into the woods. The Black Cross were stunned and immediately launched an investigation. After their investigation, the Black Cross found the Forsaken Loyalists guilty and formally issued them a ban, as I'm sure some of you may have heard already. We may not have been able to speak to the Forsaken Loyalists in that moment about this event, but if you are listening, we are interested in hearing y'all's side of the story. You know where to find us. Well, folks, this concludes the story, at least for now. For everyone's sake, we hope that this gets resolved one way or another so that no more blood must be shed. We'll continue to monitor the situation, and we'll be sure to give any updates on our next broadcast. And hopefully no more gas attacks. But for now, we'll return back to Rebel, who introduces us to a new and developing story between the Black Cross and Darkest Midnight. Rebel?
Thanks, Lane. Well, that's right, folks. Shit is once again stirring back up in the north, and man, is it spicy. Once again, I, alongside with Milton, found ourselves directly in the middle of quite the situation where we were once again forced to stare the devil right in the fucking eyes. Just earlier this week, I had made my way up to the aid station when I stumbled across Milton being asked and forced to write down notes at the demand of CJ and Thorn of Darkest Midnight. Also present was Eli of the Black Cross, as well as Caden and several other dugout members. I think y'all can figure out how I personally felt about it. But nonetheless, we weren't in a position to do anything, and so I asked them what they wanted and why they were there in the first place. Well, it appeared that Dan was in search of a fella by the name of Will, who was a citizen of Severgrad. It is not yet known what for or what Will did, but I can say that if Dan wants you, it can't be good. Anyway, not wanting for them to stumble upon another resident's house, Eli offered to show them where Will lived. Shortly upon running off into the town, a shot rang out, and we immediately ran towards Eli, fearing the worst. To our surprise, however, it wasn't Eli who got shot, but instead Thorn, who was knocked unconscious, only to get up after about a minute or two. Not knowing who the shooter was or where their location was, everyone, including CJ, Thorn, Eli, Dugout, and even ourselves, found ourselves searching around all throughout town trying to locate the shooter. Well, the shooter was never found. However, it was apparent that the shot had rang from the apartment complex which the Black Cross owns. It was at this point that Thorn, CJ, now joined by other Darkest Midnight members, pulled Eli aside all alone inside a barn. Bill and I did our best to stay as close as possible, and we were actually able to overhear tidbits of the conversation. Basically, folks, seeing that the shot came from a building which is owned by Black Cross, Darkest Midnight believed that it was Black Cross or even one of their allies who fired that shot. Now, Eli pleaded with them, saying that it wasn't, and even if it was, why on earth would he join Dan in trying to locate the shooter? I mean, that just makes no goddamn sense. Well, folks, Thorn and Dan weren't budging, and they demanded that Eli pay back not one, but 2 epoxy sticks in order to repair Thorn's now badly damaged plate carrier. Now, we weren't able to hear what was said after that, but Eli was able to exit the building, which is where myself and Milton escorted him back into safety within the aid station. We briefly discussed what happened, but not before long. Dan appeared once again outside the walls, and this time in more numbers, with much more aggression. Thorn, CJ, and even Harvey from Darkest Midnight all chimed in, demanding that Eli give them the epoxy stick. Eli held his ground, though, and saw no reason to, as he chose not to give in to the bully that they were portraying. As a result, Dan made one last-ditch effort and made one final deal. They said to send Will to Gorka with just one epoxy stick within the next 3 days, and this will all be forgotten. And if not, every single person inside that aid station will be torn to pieces. Holy hell, folks. Fucking chilling. I prayed that I would never have to see those devils again, but here they were, making more demands and more threats. Big shout out to Eli, though, from the Black Cross for standing his ground, and really the whole Black Cross in general. In various statements from various Black Cross volunteers, they said that they were tired of being pushed around and enough is enough. Due to security reasons, though, we won't get into what is being planned about it, but I can say that Black Cross fully expects Dan to take action on the threat, and so we will continue to monitor this situation with extreme care and closeness, especially in the upcoming days. Well, folks, for now, this will conclude this week's stories in this broadcast. There's been a lot going on these past few weeks, And we've been trying to highlight the biggest stories possible in order to get it all into the time frame. We do have a few paid advertisements, though. Before I give it to Lane, be sure to keep y'all's ears open for when our next broadcast will be.
Does anybody fact check your bullshit?
We will be doing yet another live interview. Yes, sir. I was there. That is what I heard.
Yeah, well, you might need to, note down some details better next time. I don't think you necessarily reported accurately.
All right, partner. Well, since we got you on there, all right, partner. Since we got you on there, do you mind filling us in then on what in your opinion, is the correct deal?
Well, you misreported the deal that we gave Black Cross that was so generous. You said my plate carrier was badly damaged and not charged 2 epoxy. No, it was just normally damaged, and the 1 epoxy was for the disrespect they gave us. Because, well, they for some reason just don't respect us like the other people in Severograd. I was sick of it.
Jesus,
so,
there are people here. Nice.
Just some extra for respect. But whatever we wanted with Will, we already got done talking to him about that. I'd say it was more than worth the epoxy that we negotiated out for his presence.
Well, all right. You heard it here, folks.
Yeah,
you heard it here
fact
first.
check your bullshit next time, please.
Sir, that is true. The original deal was 2, but then y'all lowered it to just a single 1.
Well,
now, it might not have
reporting
been
on the
directly.
status of my clothing incorrectly. Ridiculous. How do you call yourself a journalist?
It was damaged. It was damaged, to say the least. Is that not true? Was it damaged?
I guess. But if you're gonna go on the record saying, is this how it happened? You better be fucking right. It's ridiculous.
Well, folks, here at the bridge, we're all about telling the truth, and that's the accounts that we saw that day.
You
So,
also failed to
anywho,
mention how nice and generous I was promoting that fucking kid you had taking notes. He said, "Oh, I'm not a real reporter," and I said, "You are now, son. You're a real reporter." So, give some respect to that guy, Millhouse or whatever.
all right. Well, anyway, folks, that concludes this week's stories. I'm going to turn it back on to Lane for the advertisements, but I will say this. Stay tuned for next broadcast. As
Before you go,
we have an interesting
how's the
live
leg?
broadcast. Lane, take it away with the advertisements,
Rebel,
please.
how's the leg?
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got 3 advertisements today. The first one comes out from the Outrider Caravan Company. They are the Outrider Caravan Company is a group of traders. Those who would like to keep them safe, working to answer the growing need for commerce in the Southwest, as well as establish a proper network for traders across South Segoria. So come on down to Outer Heaven, our trading post east of Sosnovi Pass, and see if our merchants can help you score the next deal. We trade in guns, ammo, and all you need to survive and thrive. If we don't have it, you can do our best to find it for you. We can do our best to find it for you. The trading hours are apparently dawn to dusk, so don't show up in the nighttime. Next one comes down to us from the Carnival. This will be the last one from them. I do appreciate the payment. Their broadcast is going to be come down to Lollipop Tower to see the world-famous Tiddick the Medic, master of a series of the most difficult, ingenious, and starting medical feats known to man. Twitchy the Blood Mage, and his amazing summoning of the Blood God to the end of the world. I hope he doesn't do that. And the Scary Clown. Come see if you can run faster than his gun. Oh, hell. I hope it's like a hell of a gun. Anyways, the world's largest, grandest, best amusement institution. This next advertisement is sent out directly from Teddick the Medic himself of the Carnival. Oh hell, I'm missing his. Can one of y'all grab the note for me off the board? The medic's note. Anyway, I'll move on to the third one. The third one is Alex of Alextown. Maybe our note got lost in translation, or maybe someone picked it up off our board, Alex. But the gist of what he would like to tell the people of Shanaris is that he's building a bit of a little bit of society down there in Cherno, and that apartments are for rent. And if you'd like something like that, he's more than willing to oblige. And so finally, back on to Tedic the Medic's own personal message. Tedic the Medic's real pleasant visits, free medical exams, 100% survival rate. Please contact Tedic the Medic to make your appointment today. And always remember to run for your life. It's Tedic. Also, no refunds. Well, hell. Alright, so, anyways, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in for the 5th installment of the Bridge News Network. And I think it's been pretty rough lately, and we're just trying to get back on our feet as normal as we can. So, hopefully, next broadcast will be coming out to y'all soon, and stay tuned. Thank you all again.